So I went ahead and separated my cake batter into two different bowls. This bowl has a bit more just because I want to have 2 layers of blue and 1 layer of red. I'm using just regular 6-inch cake pans. These are Wilton cake pans. I'm using Americolor. I really love Americolor just because I don't really get a taste from this, even from the red and the black. There's no real like disgusting taste from the color, and the colors come out really awesome. So once again, I'm using electric blue for the blue part of my cake and super red for the red. So you don't really need too much of this. I always start with a couple of drops, you know, and sort of work more in as I go. So I'm going to start mixing these, and if you guys are working along, just go ahead and mix yours and I'll check back with you in a second. So this is where I am so far, just with the drops that you saw me put in. Now there's probably a lot of the white cake batter in the bottom, so I'm just going to add a little bit more. So I think that's about 4 drops so far. And you want to just check the bottom of your bowl. See, I still have a lot of white in there. Mix this a little bit more and start mixing the red, and then I'll be right back. So these are my 2 colors. You saw me add a little extra drops to the blue. I didn't actually add any more red. This is what I started with in the beginning. It was like a couple of drops, and you can see it came out pretty red. You can get it you know, a little bit darker if you want, but I find that it comes out pretty nice, and mine actually, sometimes it darkens a little bit during baking. I think it depends on the recipe, but this is a regular white cake recipe. I did use the whole egg, so my batter was a little bit yellow tinted, but if you want something, you know, more pure white, then you can just use egg whites. I usually only make it pure white if the cake needs to be white. When I'm coloring it, it doesn't really, you know, change it too much for me. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these in cake pans and go ahead and pop them in the oven. I preheated my oven to 350. So these I like to just watch them a little bit because the pan's a bit smaller and they'll cook a little bit faster or brown around the edges. Okay, so now I'm gonna make my frosting. I'm not sure if you can use store-bought frosting for this. I don't normally use store-bought frosting because I don't like the taste of it, but the consistency may be okay. But if you feel like being adventurous and making your own buttercream, it's super easy. You can see I don't really have a lot of ingredients here because it doesn't really take much. So here I have about 3 to 4 cups, well, it's 4 cups of confectioner's sugar, and I'm going to sift it. You want to make sure you sift it just so your buttercream isn't lumpy or has you know, chunks of powdered sugar in it. I'm also going to use 2 sticks of butter. The butter I'm using is salted butter. If you use unsalted butter, then you can add a pinch of salt to your frosting to cut down on the sweet. I also have a version of this that I use with cream cheese, and that helps cut down on the sweet as well, but this time I'm just using a regular buttercream recipe. But anyway, yes, so 4 cups of confectioner's sugar or powdered sugar, 2 sticks of butter, and I have about 3 tablespoons, I will say, of heavy cream. You can use milk. I just like to use cream because it keeps the frosting really nice and creamy. And then I have 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Now you can use clear vanilla, which Wilton makes a brand. That's the only one I know because it's local right in my Walmart, but I'm pretty sure you can get other brands of clear vanilla, and that will help keep your frosting white if you need it to be. But like I said, I'm going to be coloring this, and the parts that are going to be white, I don't really care if it's not bright white. So it's totally fine. So I'm going to go ahead and sift this sugar, then I'm going to throw it into my KitchenAid and go ahead and mix it together, and then I'll check back with you guys. So before you start mixing everything in your KitchenAid, and you can probably do this with a hand mixer as well. Maybe one day I'll try it out and see how it works. But you want to make sure that your butter is softened. Mine wasn't soft, so I just threw both sticks in the microwave for about 10 seconds. I just squished it a little bit in my hands just to, you want to make sure it's not melted, but you do want it to be soft. So I creamed my butter, so it's really creamy. You want to do that just to set a nice creamy base for your icing. And then I'm adding in just a about a cup at a time of the powdered sugar. If you add too much, then you know, it's kind of going to explode in your face and you're going to get powdered sugar everywhere. So just do it little by little, cup at a time. If you hear your machine struggling, you can go ahead and start adding a little cream, or you can add in the vanilla, and that'll help loosen it up a little bit. And what you'll want to do as you're mixing, you'll see a bunch of, you know, powdered sugar and butter and the whole mixture on the sides. You just want to take a spatula, go in there, and sort of scrape that down and scrape the bottom so that it's well incorporated. Get some of the stuff up off the top of the paddle attachment, and, you know, make sure that it's all mixed in. So I'm going to go ahead and put the camera down and do that, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I'm done making my frosting and my cakes are done. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and level off these cakes. I also separated out a little bit of frosting and tinted it blue. I used about 2 or 3 drops of electric blue and 2 or 3 of royal to try to darken it up a little bit. You can add a little, maybe like 1 drop of navy as well if you have that, or maybe black. I haven't tried that if you want the blue to be a little bit darker. I also separated out some red, and we're going to use that for the stripes. I have the rest of the white frosting or off-white frosting in the KitchenAid bowl, and then I have the sliced strawberries that we're going to put in the cake. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to fill 2 piping bags with the red and the blue mixture. I'm going to be using Wilton 21 tips. And sometimes you'll see people use like the white couplers in these. I usually only do that if I'm going to be changing the tips. So if I wanted to do the red in like a shell, you know, for a shell border, but then I also wanted to use, you know, a different kind of tip, maybe a 32 tip, then I would use the coupler system, but I'm not changing tips. So I'm just going to slide the tip in and go ahead and cut off the edge of the bag, and then go ahead and use that. So again, I'll get my tip all the way in there, and then I'll push it back a little bit and snip off the edge, and then push the tip out, and then that's it. And then when you load your piping bag, you just want to curl it back a little bit and sort of make your hand like a cup, and then go ahead and fill it up. Just give yourself enough room at the top to twist it off, and that way you have some pressure to go ahead and get it to pipe out pretty easily. Now the way that I level my cakes is I mean there's lots of little tools out there that you can use, and I actually have one of them, but a lot of times I just like to use my serrated knife, and I just make sure that my arm is really tight to my side while I'm doing this, and I kind of just move a little bit inwards while I'm spinning the cake, and it sort of just makes it nice and even as you go across. So you see you get a nice, or a pretty even cut when you do it that way. Now, depending on how pretty you want to make your cake, you can, you know, ice this, put your layers of icing and strawberry in or whatnot, and then you can, you know, come down and trim off the parts of the outside that are brown. I'm just making this for the house. I am by no means a professional baker or anything like that. I just like to make these things for fun and for friends and for the family. So I don't really care too much about the burnt part or the browner part. Still tastes good. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start layering in my icing and my fruit, and gonna go ahead and get it all put together, and then we'll start decorating. Okay, so now that I have my cake nicely covered, I'm ready to start working on the artwork. So this is kind of supposed to be like a flag, but you know, it's round and you don't really have a lot of room. And you know, it's sort of just for fun, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I like to come halfway down the cake and sort of mark where I'm going to put the blue area. And then for the top, I don't go all the way halfway. I kind of want to leave enough room. But this is about the area that you're going to be working with. So this area is going to be blue, and this is going to be alternating red and white stripes. So again, like I said, I'm using a Wilton 21 tip, and typically you use these tips for shells and stars. And that's it for your blue area. Next, we're going to go in and do the red stripes. I'm just going to do all the red ones first and then go back in and do the white. And I'm sort of just eyeballing it. If you want, you can draw out the lines with a skewer stick like I did for the blue area, but you can also just wing it. If you're just making it for home, you know, it may not be that big of a deal. Sort of messed up my shell there, not paying attention. Well, my squiggle, really. And I live in California, SoCal, so it gets pretty hot here, so my frosting is sort of getting soft. So you just want to be careful of that if you're using an all butter recipe. So that's that. So I'm probably going to do a little bit around the base, and then I'm going to come back in and fill in the white. You also don't have to. You can leave it just like this if that's what you'd like to do. Okay, so after doing the border, I have a little bit of strawberry sticking out. That's the piece I want. But anyway, after doing the border and looking at it, I think it's kind of cute just the way that it is. Now what you want to do for the blue area is you can go in, and if you have any leftover icing, oh, and if you like a lot of icing, you're going to want to double that recipe, or if you decide to do the white stripes, you'll double it, or if you're doing an 8-inch cake, a larger cake. Remember, this is a 6-inch cake. This is pretty small, so it doesn't require a lot of icing. But anyway, you'll want to either use a little bit of leftover icing and use a really tiny tip, I think a #1 tip, to go ahead and make stars, or I have these Wilton sprinkles, or these sugar pearls, and that's what I'm going to use for my star. And they seem to just kind of be falling into a nice place. I'm just kind of getting lucky. And I know I mentioned Wilton a lot. This is not like a sponsored Wilton video or anything. I just, you know, most of their products I like to use. Some of the food-based products, well, maybe I guess it's just the frosting. I don't really like the taste of it, so I always make my own. But a lot of their tools are really great. and they make it easy to use, and they're not super expensive. So if you're kind of like a hobbyist or, you know, a home baker, you just like to bake for fun, I really like to use Wilton products. There are some things that I will get, like a lot of my tips are a Teco brand. I do have some Wilton tips. And also using Wilton makes it a lot easier on you because Wilton is like everywhere. It's at Walmart. So I can kind of get access to a lot of the staples that I need. Okay, so that's it. Here is your finished cake, and oh, it smells so good. I can't wait to eat it. I'm gonna go ahead and get a little closer look for you guys.